In the past few days, it's been confirmed that DC has officially started developing a series based on V for Vendetta. The key detail here is that James Gunn and Peter Safran are listed as producers, which instantly makes this project worth paying attention to. Other than that, there's no more information yet, but judging by what's known, this new adaptation will most likely fall under the Elseworlds banner. That means it'll exist in a separate universe, outside the main DC continuity. Still, the fact that V for Vendetta is getting a reboot is huge news on its own. The 2005 movie remains one of the greatest comic book films ever made, a timeless political thriller that's aged incredibly well. Many fans who aren't even into superhero movies often forget that V, despite being disconnected from DC's mainline heroes, is technically part of that broader universe. This new show basically confirms that Elseworlds will continue expanding beyond DCU, and right after the announcement, James Gunn made it clear that this isn't the only surprise DC has in store. Even before Superman began filming, Gunn teased that the studio was secretly developing a project with a major star, something he described as so mind-blowing that revealing the title alone would blow everyone's minds. Fans immediately started speculating about who that actor could be and what project he meant. The most logical guess: a sequel to Constantine, with Keanu Reeves returning as the cynical demon hunter himself. It's one of those projects that's been floating around Hollywood for years. Even back in Zack Snyder's days, there were serious talks behind the scenes about making a follow-up. The thing is, a script actually existed. Warner Brothers execs knew it, several drafts were written, and according to Keanu Reeves himself, the earliest version leaned heavily into fantasy. It went all in on the war between heaven and hell, diving deeper into demons, angels, and full-on magical warfare. Basically, the plan was to make it a massive fantasy blockbuster, but that direction was exactly what Keanu pushed back against. He's always been protective of Constantine's tone, that dark, grounded, noir-style supernatural thriller vibe. For years, Warner Brothers kept trying to get the sequel off the ground, but Keanu's schedule was packed with other projects, and he reportedly wasn't satisfied with the story they had at the time. He didn't want to make a sequel just for the sake of it. Recently though, things have changed. In a new interview, Keanu confirmed that a solid script has finally been found, written by Akiva Goldsman. The same screenwriter behind the original movie, Goldsman reportedly pitched Warner Brothers 3 different story ideas, and the third one was the one that both director Francis Lawrence and Keanu loved. From what's known, the new Constantine won't be a direct continuation, but more of a soft reboot. It'll take place years after the first film. Acknowledging the original events, but slightly reworking them, that means it'll technically remain canon, but the timeline and supporting details might be adjusted. And the biggest hint so far suggests that, aside from Keanu Reeves, most of the cast could be completely recast without affecting the story. So don't expect everyone to return. The focus seems to be on starting fresh while keeping the soul of the first Constantine alive. Still, one name keeps popping up when fans talk about a potential Constantine sequel: Peter Stormare. He played Lucifer in the original movie, and in several interviews last year, he said he'd love to return to that role. Even though, as he admitted, no one from Warner Brothers has actually reached out to him yet, Stormare expressed deep gratitude toward Constantine for giving him one of the most memorable roles of his career. He said the film expanded his fanbase and gave him the chance to play a version of Lucifer that audiences still remember almost 20 years later. As a longtime fan of DC, he also understands how significant this character is in that universe, and he'd jump at the chance to bring him back. Stormare recently opened up about some behind-the-scenes details, and what he said really explains why Constantine 2 took so long to happen. According to him, Keanu wasn't satisfied with the earlier versions of the script. They were overloaded with cliches, big action set pieces, shootouts, explosions, basically turning Constantine into another loud, formulaic blockbuster. All the subtle, moody, and philosophical elements that made the first film so unique were stripped away. Stormare said Keanu even told the studio that he'd already done John Wick, and that Constantine should feel completely different. And he's absolutely right. The first movie, while full of striking visuals, was never just about fighting demons. It was about faith, sin, redemption, and the eternal battle between light and darkness within the human soul. That's what gave it depth and identity, and that's exactly what Keanu wanted to preserve for the sequel. There are even rumors that Reeves pitched a daring new interpretation of God's character for the film. Instead of the traditional glowing angelic figure, he wanted God to have the same calm, mysterious energy as Lucifer, dressed in black, introspective, ambiguous, and complex. Stormare is reportedly the source of this info, and honestly, it tracks perfectly with Keanu's creative instincts and his deep understanding of who Constantine is as a character. Because really, take away the spiritual and moral core of Constantine, and you lose everything that made it special. Keanu has been fighting for years to make sure this sequel isn't just another studio product. He wants it to feel meaningful, haunting, and true to the character. And now that the project is finally gaining traction, there's a real chance he'll get his wish. If James Gunn signs off on Akiva Goldsman's final draft, we could be looking at a proper return. Not flashy or overblown, but grounded, atmospheric, and unmistakably Keanu. Back in 2005, Constantine didn't blow up the box office, at least not compared to superhero movies of that era, but over time it found its audience and became a true cult classic. That grim noir aesthetic, the religious symbolism, the unforgettable depiction of hell, and of course Keanu's haunting, weary performance, all of it turned Constantine into one of the most iconic supernatural films of the 2000s. Now, almost 2 decades later, the long-awaited sequel is finally closer to reality than ever before. Everything currently depends on DC's leadership, mainly James Gunn. Of course, that's just the actor's wish for now. Nothing has been confirmed, and given what's rumored about Akiva Goldsman's script, there's a strong possibility of a major time jump that could mean almost the entire supporting cast gets recast, with only Keanu Reeves returning as an older, more world-weary John Constantine, a man who's spent years fighting demons and has finally grown tired of it all. This version of the film is expected to fit into DC's Elseworlds line, a standalone story separate from the main continuity, and it might not even be titled Constantine 2 at all. It could be a soft reboot, maybe even something like a spiritual continuation, where the old story remains canon but reimagined for a new era. That approach isn't new for Hollywood. Plenty of franchises have taken the same path successfully. It seems Reeves took that meeting seriously, because since then, the script has gone through heavy rewrites, and is now reportedly much closer to what Gunn's team envisioned. That drastically increases the chances of it being approved soon. DC has already shown it's open to taking creative risks. Look at Clayface, a Batman villain spin-off that got greenlit purely on the strength of its screenplay and already has a release date. Constantine 2 could follow that same path. For DC, this would be a smart move. Keeping Keanu Reeves in the mix instantly adds star power and credibility to their lineup, especially since he hasn't appeared in the Marvel Universe, which makes him an exclusive win for DC's image. It's also a way for the studio to test audience interest in revisiting older, cult favorite titles from the 2000s. Constantine was never a traditional superhero movie. When it came out, the genre was still in its experimental stage. Aside from the success of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and Tim Burton's Batman, studios weren't yet convinced that comic book adaptations were guaranteed hits. Constantine dropped right before Nolan redefined the genre with Batman Begins, at a time when darker, weirder, more atmospheric comic book films were still a gamble. In many ways, Constantine and V for Vendetta share that same early 2000s spirit. Grounded, philosophical, and slightly anarchic. Both came from DC's Vertigo imprint, both pushed against the mainstream idea of what a comic adaptation could be. So now that V for Vendetta is getting a series, it almost feels inevitable that Constantine will follow. It's the perfect moment to bring back that era's tone, the moody, cerebral, rebellious energy that made those films stand out in the first place. With Keanu Reeves returning, Francis Lawrence likely back to direct, and a loyal fan base still passionate after all these years, this sequel has everything it needs to make a major comeback. If all goes according to plan, and Gunn gives the final green light, production could begin as early as 2026. After 2 decades of waiting, John Constantine might finally be stepping out of the shadows again.